Are you longing to feel connected and not so alone? Longing to be happy and more alive? Badass Counseling is excited to announce the creation of Community Plus, a subscription-based private group of folks just wanting to more closely share their soul journey together with like-minded folks and with me, Sven. For a monthly fee, you'll get bi-monthly live Q&As with me, Sven, giving you a better chance of getting your own questions answered. A private community feed for you to post pictures, successes, struggles, joys, even the occasional cat picture, creating greater connection and help for healing and growth. Random drawings for free small group sessions and drawings for private coaching sessions with me. Priority access to becoming a guest on the Badass Counseling Show podcast. Unlimited access to my DIY video courses, Healing the Soul and Unleashing Your Greatness. And so much more. Community Plus is for people serious about their soul journey who want real growth, real help, real laughter, real connection, and true community. Join us now at badasscounseling.com.
From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hello, you fine badasses. How are you today? I tell you, you are looking so good. I am so blessed to be in your ear. It's great to have you here. I am Sven Erlandson, the host of the Badass Counseling Show. And whether you are tuning in from Netherlands to Neuschwanstein or Nevada to dear old Napoli, we love having you here on our show. I am joined in studio by KC, who is not in the booth. We have unlocked her, and she is actually sitting next to me. So we are all dressed well and sitting up straight. We have washed behind our ears, as Mom would say, because Mom is here. All right. And I am also joined by Rob the Rocket. Rob, what do you have to say today?
It's radio, so if I wasn't well dressed and if I wasn't exactly clean behind the ears, no one would know.
That's true. Although you are always well dressed and clean behind the ears.
Thank
KC,
you.
have ye anything to say?
I almost thought you weren't going to ask how I was because you said I talk too much.
You talk too much. We never hear your voice. That's like
exactly. So when I'm on the show and I want to talk, let me talk.
I don't think you need anybody's permission, KC. It's always great to have you here. Rob, if you would, please tell us about Libby and Skeeter.
All right, let me start with Libby, who wrote in and said, "How do I stop living in the future? What if? I grew up in a home with a physically and emotionally abusive father with no respect for women. My mother was chronically depressed and had basically checked out. My sort of fondest first memory of my father was when I brought home a less-than-perfect report card in first grade. He pulled out my keepsake drawing, my first kindergarten drawing from my first day of school, and he wrote, 'Libby is a dummy,' in big letters across it and posted it to the fridge. When I began to cry, he taunted me for being a crybaby. That's a snapshot of my childhood. My father once slammed my sister to the floor and began choking her for fighting my younger brother. He told her no girl was going to touch his son. This was traumatic for us both. 8 years ago, she died of autoerotic asphyxia, and I wondered if they were connected. This shattered our family. Sitting here now at age 54, I know my inability to make decisions on the simplest of things is related somehow. My life has been on hold since childhood. I am scared to buy a house, scared to vacation, scared to change careers. But is it fear of failure or the lack of support and knowing I was all alone? I can't quite pinpoint the cause and how to start living life. Life has passed me by, but I am ready to live. Please help." And we also heard from Skeeter, who's with us this evening. She said, "I grew up in a home filled with both physical and emotional abuse from my parents. My younger sister, the golden child, mirrored their behavior, often delighting in my pain. At 21, I married to escape, and though I have 2 beautiful children, the marriage ended. Seeking love, I remarried, this time to a man much older, who introduced me to a life of addiction. His infidelity and our struggles pushed me deeper into pain until he left for good. Nearly 6 years ago, I got clean and divorced him, but I carry guilt and shame over my past, especially as a mother. My relationship with my family remains strained. My mother refuses to acknowledge her abuse, instead demanding that I move on and love her. When I try to set boundaries or explain my need to heal, she lashes out, further compounding my anxiety and self-doubt. Now I am on a journey of self-discovery, working to process my past and find peace. While the awareness of all I've endured feels overwhelming at times, I am determined to rebuild my life and nurture a loving relationship with myself. My story is one of resilience and the pursuit of healing as I work to shed guilt, define boundaries, and create a future free from the shadows of my past.
Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Skeeter, I would like to ask you, you had said in the second bio there that Rob read, lots of emotional and physical abuse, a younger sister delighting in your pain. And you got clean recently after getting into addiction with your second husband. And I carry guilt and shame. What is the biggest, absolute biggest thing in your life that you carry the most shame over in one sentence or less?
I carry shame over being a poor mom.
In what way above all else?
Not meeting their needs when I was in addiction.
Specifically, which need above all else?
Love.
In what form?
Caring, nurturing.
Mm-hmm. And how old are your kids now?
My kids are 20 years old and 19 years old.
Have you gone to them? Have you spoken with them about this? And how did that go?
I have spoke to both of them, Sven. They said they're okay. And, I apologized for my behavior when I was active in addiction. And it seems genuine that they have forgave me, but I still carry it with me.
Yeah, and that's completely understandable that you carry it with them or with you. And sadly, one of the things that happens with kids, when the parent actually apologizes, especially when the kid is young, you're more likely to get a meaty and more meaningful conversation when the kid is 35, 40. But when they're young, they feel bad for you, Mom, that you are apologizing. They are still, to some degree, like kids always do, feel the desire to take care of the parent. So they don't want you to feel bad. Oh, it's okay, Mom. It's okay, Mom. Just out of curiosity, are your kids in any sort of therapy at all? Any counseling?
They were. They're not anymore actively.
Okay, great. So they're at least familiar with it, know that the door is open for that in their lives. And so you're feeling guilt over that. Dumb question, but let me ask you, what do you think it would take for you to let go of the guilt, for you to truly be free of it? What do you think it would take?
I believe now today it would be time and just to spend more time with them, get to know them on a deeper level.
Do they desire to have time and know you on a deeper level?
I believe they do. Yes.
And are you executing that then?
Every day I'm trying my hardest for sure. Good
girl. All right. So let me ask you then, moving sort of towards Mom. Mom and Dad were emotionally and physically abusive. Mother refuses to acknowledge her abuse, instead demanding that you should move on and just love me. Get over it. It didn't happen. Fuck off. And when I tried to set my boundaries or explain my need to heal, she lashes out, further compounding my anxiety and self-doubt. Let me ask you a question. If I were reading that paragraph, if Rob were reading that paragraph, but it weren't your paragraph, it were Libby's paragraph, and you heard that her mother refuses to acknowledge the abuse that she committed and just saying, hey, kid, shut the fuck up, get over it, move on, come on, I was great, it's all good. What would you most want to say to Libby?
Tread lightly.
Be
careful.
Okay, out of fear of what?
Getting hurt over and over.
Interesting. You know what, Libby? I'm just going to ask you. What would you say? And we haven't met Libby, folks. Libby's chiming in here. Libby, what would you say to Skeeter? I'm just curious when you hear me say that her mother refuses to acknowledge her abuse, instead demanding that she move on and love her. And when Skeeter tries to set boundaries or explain her need to heal, good old Mom further lashes out and compounding anxiety and self-doubt. What would you say in that position? I'm just curious. What would you say to Skeeter?
I would say maybe she needs to, from listening to your show, maybe distance herself
Interesting.
and maybe journal.
Interesting.
Start writing things down. Write her a letter.
Okay, let's. You're thinking somewhat in the same direction I am, but before the sort of stepping away or creating space or whatever, I think you nailed it on a lot of counts there, Libby. Let me ask you, Skeeter. Tread lightly implies still being in connection with and interaction with the mother. So you giving that advice implies to me that you are still interacting with your mother. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just curious. You have a woman who completely denies your reality, is basically telling you to shut the fuck up, who spent your childhood physically and emotionally abusing her, and in fact, allowing your sister to engage in pain on you and delight in the pain inflicted on you. I am curious, honest question. Why are you still interacting with this person? What are you still wanting?
I haven't directly interacted with her. She's interacted with me.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I believe was several months ago, and she had reached out just saying, she missed me and she wanted to connect with me. And that's at that time, Sven, what I did was just reply back respectfully and just said, I still need some time. I'm, sifting through a lot of my past. And that's when I got kind of blasted to outer space at that time. So I really, my kids have a relationship with my parents, which I've let them decide what they want to do. They're adults.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a different, they have different grandparents than kind of I had as parents. But I haven't reached out myself and interacted.
Okay. And prior to months ago, how many times would you say over the last 5 years, or over the last 2 years, you've interacted in one way or another with your mother?
Oh, it was probably about 8 months before that.
So then back to my question, you are interacting with your mother. And you have not blocked her, which means she is, for some intents and purposes, still in your life. And you said it to her, it's basically not time yet, which implies there might be a time. Okay. And even if there's not in your head, you are conveying that message to her. It's like when you break up with a guy and you say, well, maybe later. It's like, he's going to be a puppy. He's going to follow you around. And eventually you're going to be like, fuck. Puppy, get off my fucking leg, get the fuck away from me. So let me ask you, what are you still wanting from your mother?
I think deep down I want an apology.
And just out of curiosity, what percent chance do you think you have of ever getting that apology? 5%. And isn't that a testament to how powerful that drive is? If you got that apology, what fundamentally would be the effect on your life?
I don't know if it would help me move through it and move on.
Oh, come on now. You've waited your whole, don't give me that answer. Not much bullshit. You've waited your whole fucking life for this. To the point you are, whatever age you are, and you're still allowing someone to treat you this way. Would you ever let anyone else in your life treat you the way this person has treated you?
Not a chance.
Exactly. Which says you're wanting something pretty fucking badly. So even if it might not change things on the outside, what is the fundamental change it would enact on the inside?
5% is so low, and I know that I'm holding on for a miracle.
Not the question. The question isn't the likelihood. The question is, what would be the change inside of you if she came back to you and said, sweetheart, I'm a fucking asshole. What I have done to you for so long, what I did to you, what we did to you, what was allowed in your home. You were not safe, and it is because of me. And there's no excuse. And if you never forgive me for the rest of your life, I would completely understand, but that doesn't change the fact that what I did was heinous. I am so disgusted with myself. I am so fucking sorry, my dear, sweet girl. I am so sorry. You do not have to say one word. I need you to know that I finally see, and I feel it. Like a dead weight on my heart. I feel it. Now, what would happen inside of you?
I would feel seen.
Your voice is cracking right now. What are you feeling right now?
I'm sad. It's very hard.
What's the saddest part?
Feeling invisible my whole childhood. And still to this day.
Still to this day. And one more question before I tip over to Libby here and let you off the hook a bit. So she treated your sister differently, is that correct?
Yes.
And she is treating your children differently, is that correct?
Yes.
So what does that tell us? Doesn't that, in fact, tell us that it wasn't that mom was incapable as a mother? It wasn't that mom couldn't do better, didn't know any better. She absolutely knows better how to treat someone else differently. She knows how to turn it off and she knows how to turn it on. And with you, she chose patterns of behavior that were so profoundly hurtful. She chose to hurt you. We call that malice. We call that hatred, particularly when perpetrated by a parent onto a child, by an adult onto a child. Your own mother and father chose to hurt you and have continued to choose to do so, never atoning for all they did. How does it feel to know that she fucking chose to treat you this way all these years?
Makes me angry, very angry.
Good.
I hear a lot of people say, they did the best they could with the tools they have. And I look at it, and when I was in treatment, I remember having this conversation about how, when you have a sibling that's treated differently, it's very confusing.
Well, yes, it is. But on the other hand, it's not. It's very, very, very vividly fucking clear. You made a fucking choice. You picked on me. You bullied me, and you've never stopped. And you're such a pathetic coward, Mom. And Dad, thanks for not protecting me, asshole. Thanks, Mom and Dad. You chose to bully a child. What kind of fucking piece of shit human being does that? So that brings us over to you, Libby. You thought you were off the hook. And just a reminder, folks, Libby is the one who says, my mother was chronically depressed and had emotionally checked out. And my fondest first memory of my father was, obviously saying that facetiously, was when I brought home a less than perfect report card in first grade. He pulled out my keepsake drawing, my first kindergarten drawing from my first day of school. I mean, it's just sweet. It's just like where she's setting us up for this beautiful story that they kept her first drawing from the first day of school in kindergarten. And he wrote, Libby is a dummy, in big letters across it, and posted it to the fridge. When I began to cry, he taunted me for being a crybaby. As if that weren't enough. So, folks, just for the record, we're talking about a first grader, 6 years old. All right? Even the smallest person I know, even the most little or weak person I know, is tougher than a 6-year-old. So it's just an absolute imbalance of power, absolute and unequivocal imbalance of power. And this man bullies a little girl and then taunts her. And then my father once slammed my sister to the floor and began choking her for fighting my younger brother. He told her no girl was going to touch my son. This was traumatic for us both, and 8 years ago, she died of autoerotic asphyxia. And I wondered if they were connected. Can we all just agree Dad's a fucking asshole of the year? Wow. I mean, wow. Just wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Libby, thoughts on Dad?
When I was in my early 20s, I would think through this a lot and why a parent would do it. And I decided that he was just irrelevant to me. He was just an insecure bully. His behavior with his kids were just so ridiculous that I just discounted him. I said, your opinion does not matter to me.
I see. And so let me ask you, what's the reason? I'm just curious. You know your sister. I obviously know nothing about your deceased sister. May she rest in peace. Mm-hmm. What causes you to wonder if there is a connection between the autoerotic asphyxia in the way she died and the fact that she was slammed to the floor and choked by her father? What might be the connection?
when we found out that was how she passed away, she was actually found in her home. She stopped. She was home alone. Stopped responding to her husband. Stopped responding to a neighbor knocking on the door, and they had a police officer go in and find her. But
so, what's the connection? What do you think the connection is?
The connection, I think, I went down the rabbit hole on Google. Like, why would someone do this? It was such a shock to the family, and I found out that people that have been choked in the past by a girlfriend or a loved one somehow gets wires crossed and just starts equating pain and pleasure.
Okay. And so how old was you? And I know nothing about it, so let's run with it. How old was your sister when she died?
She was around, I say 35 maybe.
35. And so do you think your sister ever had the point where she said, you know what, my dad's irrelevant, fuck it, I don't care what he thinks? I mean, like you did when you were 20 or 21?
I don't think she did. She tried to please him, all through her. As even after she moved out, she would write letters and send birthday cards and was just that person.
And so why do you think because clearly his
made
voice...
sure that everyone was taken care of, they were thought of. And
Sure. It was pretty clear that his voice was still ringing in her head. If that's the reason she died, then it was clear that he was still impacting her life. That the impact of him in her childhood was still affecting her. So it's safe to say that those things from childhood are pretty powerful, right?
They are.
Very good.
In ways you can't imagine.
Right. And right. And so let me ask you, do you still have interaction with your father?
He passed away about 3 months ago.
Did you have interactions with him for the last few years?
I did on
why?
Maybe
why
like
did
a
you have
necessary
why
basis.
did you have interactions with your father?
Probably to so I didn't disappoint my aunt or family members or cause ripples in the family.
I see. So you were interacting with someone who was irrelevant to you to please someone else.
Yes.
And you giggle about that. What's the giggle?
Yes. Because it makes no sense. You
and
say
yet
it out
you were
loud
doing
and
it. And yet you were doing it. And so let me ask you, just out of curiosity, is it possible that you are still wanting something from your father?
I think, I've told myself for years no, but I was triggered by one of your shows, last shows. Someone was talking along the same lines, and it teared me up.
Oh,
and I thought, maybe deep down inside somewhere, it'd be nice to have Dad say, I'm relevant.
And the thing is just a few minutes ago when I said, with your sister, the dad voice and the parental stuff, it's powerful. It continues into adulthood. And you said, yes, it's very powerful. You confirmed it, which means you're acknowledging that the shit of dad, you can say he's irrelevant, he doesn't matter to me, but that doesn't change the voices inside. Until those are actually addressed, it's still there. Would you agree
Definitely.
or disagree?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that action when you were in your early 20s is saying he's irrelevant to me, fuck you. I understand it, but in fact, and that was an attempt to sort of survive, but he was still very much embedded in your DNA. We're going to take a short break and come right back with Libby.
My best friend made me listen to some podcast, said it had blown her away. So we listened to a lightning round of the Badass Counseling Show together. All I can say is, wow. First podcast I had ever listened to. Now it's my addiction. If you haven't done it yet, you need to subscribe to the Badass Counseling Show.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
Libby, you said your father was abusive, had no respect for women. Your mother was chronically depressed and had basically checked out. And so it sounds like everyone, it's you, your sister, your mother, and your father. Is that it? 4 of you?
I actually have 2 sisters and
a brother. That's right. Okay, right. I forgot about the brother. Okay. And so was it true then that at least all the women in the house lived in fear?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's safe to say then you weren't safe in your own home.
We weren't.
Right.
No.
Right. So you've never had a true sense of safety and security that was disrupted from a very young age, that the foundation of feeling safe in life was never truly there. Safe to say?
Yes.
Okay. And
I've never felt safe.
you've never felt safe. Do you have children of your own?
I do. I have a daughter and a son.
A daughter and a son. Lovely. And let me ask you this. You have a daughter and a son, and if when they were younger, your husband choked them and humiliated them and wrote dummy on their favorite little drawing and put it on their refrigerator and was cruel to your children, what would you do?
Oh, they would be probably gone, suitcase packed out the door.
I see. So you're saying then that you feel an obligation to protect your kids.
Yes.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, you say your mom basically checked out, chronically depressed and checked out. What was her responsibility in this case?
Probably the responsibility she never took. She watched us be beaten and taunted and bullied.
What was her responsibility?
She actually would even tell on us.
What was she supposed to do? What's
Protect
a parent?
us.
Precisely. Who commits the greater crime in your book? And there's no right or wrong answer. Everybody answers differently. For you, who commits the greater crime? The parent hitting the child or the parent allowing the child to be hit time and again?
I would almost say the parent allowing the child to be treated that way.
For a lot of people.
And that's the way I feel toward my mother.
That's right. For a lot of people, that's the answer.
Yes.
For a lot of other people, the other one's the answer. No right or wrong answer. It's a personal decision. But for you, then, are you saying then that in your eyes, your mom committed the greater crime by letting it happen?
I do. I do.
And just so...
I'm more angry at her than my dad.
Understandable. And again, it's a personal decision for every person. Let me ask you this. What did your mother gain by keeping her mouth shut and not getting you out of there?
I guess a roof over her head, a relationship. She didn't have, she'd been cut off from her family, isolated.
A roof and a relationship. So financial security and sort of emotional familial security. So if I'm hearing you then, would it be a reasonable statement to say that your mother protected herself at the expense of her 3 daughters?
Yes.
How does that feel?
Absolutely.
How does that feel?
I wouldn't do it. So it makes me angry. It feels, it makes you feel like you don't matter. You're not important.
And what level of anger do you feel like you have felt towards your mother in the past?
Probably 80% anger toward her.
Interesting. I'm curious, Skeeter, what do you believe the mother's responsibility was in Libby's case?
To protect her children.
Skeeter, I sort of had you on the hot seat a few minutes ago. You had quite a few tears coming. What's going on inside of you right now, Skeeter?
Listening to Libby is frustrating and makes me angry for her because, you know, being a mom and picturing the way that, you know, her mom just kind of sit back and with her depression and allowed these things to happen. I can't imagine now that I'm a mom to ever let anything happen to my children. That's, you know, first and foremost, protect them.
And what's the category of, if that's true, as you think about Libby's mom, what's the category of crime then that your mom's crimes fit into? And I don't mean which is worse. I don't want to get into that. That's offensive to both of you. But more, how do you categorize? Because it's almost as though you keep wanting something from mom or going back to mom, almost as if to excuse it, or what I want overrides what was done. Is that an inaccurate rendering on my part?
No.
Just out of curiosity, how old's your mom?
My mom is 69.
69, I see. So what's the biggest struggle in your life right now? We discussed your struggle regarding the shame, regarding your kids, but you said, if I keep interacting with them, I can see that abating. And at some point you're forgiving yourself, giving yourself that absolution. So what's the biggest struggle in your life?
I think it's even worse around the holidays, the struggle of, not having a family to connect with because I don't go there and I haven't been there in many years.
Mm-hmm.
It's lonely. And I think that's what I'm seeking is that family dynamic that I don't have and I haven't had. But when I've been there, I've been very unhappy while I've been there. I've been, verbally abused while I've been there. So it's confusing for me too. I don't know.
Do you identify with any of that, Libby? This idea of loneliness, this idea of the holidays, this idea of feeling unconnected to family?
I do. My sister passing away and just the family relationships and being a single mother, working a lot as my kids are growing up and super lonely around this time.
And I'd ask Skeeter, lips aren't doing their job today. I'd ask Skeeter what the biggest thing is that's troubling her. And she says it's sort of the loneliness and feeling disconnected and alone in the world. And what is the biggest thing vexing you in your life, Libby?
The biggest thing for me, fear. Fear of everything. Fear of, I sold my house because I was afraid I would lose my job during COVID. I make a lot of decisions based on fear. I don't know how to fix it or change it. Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to be on vacation this week, but I looked for, ideas of where to go and actually talk myself out of going anywhere.
Wow.
For fear of being in a car accident or not enjoying the trip or, maybe a serial killer is going to break in or.
Understandable. No, I tell you what, when you have had the childhood that you have had, when you've been in fear your whole life, it's all you know. When you grow up in a war zone, you keep waiting for the next bomb to drop and you just assume it's going to drop. That was your reality. And so let me ask you, what sort of work have you done in terms of going into those fears and facing them? Has it been something you've sort of stayed away from or you've done some work on, or where are you at with your fears?
Well, I read through your book and I zipped through it and I went back and started with chapter 1. It has some questions about fear. Mm-hmm. And I've watched some of your stuff about fear. We actually bought a house 2 months ago. It's weird. It's a weird feeling. It's scary. It's very scary to me.
What's scary?
It's just unfounded fear sometimes. I'm going to lose my job. We're going to lose the house. I won't like it here. I won't like the neighbor. It's just always looking at the negative or what's the worst thing that could happen.
And in that regard,
but I have journaled it and I rushed through your book, and so I went back and started on chapter 1, and that's where I'm at. I was so excited to read your book. I just plowed through it, so now I'm going back and working through it slowly.
Good. And just out of curiosity, what could either of your parents have said or say that would make those fears go away? Could they, magically, I know they probably wouldn't, but if they could, what could they say that would wash that away?
I never even heard my mother tell me she loved me. If she were to say, I love you and you matter, I think that would be awesome.
You think that would go a long way in terms of you feeling a little safer in the world and having a little bit of peace inside?
Probably. Yeah.
Skeeter, regarding your loneliness, is that a big feeling that you felt growing up?
Yes.
That you had no one, that you were alone, no one was protecting you. Did you feel unsafe in your home growing up?
Definitely.
And so you've been sort of alone the whole time?
I have, yeah. People with it lonely in a busy room. Like they say, there's people all around me and, I have lots of friends and, other family members I speak with, but just it still felt so lonely and it still does today.
And let me ask you, how is your experience different from Libby's? Libby talks about fear. Maybe it's similar. Do you have the fears like Libby has the fears, or is it different from you, for you?
I definitely have fear. I'm not sure the same fears as Libby. I think that I think trauma's changed my brain for sure, in the way of just being scared of a lot of things that I would think just normal people wouldn't. When she talked about, fear of losing her job during COVID and not being able to, pay her bills or lose her house and things like that. Like that racing mind, I have it too. When she talked about those things, it really does resonate with me.
And then for you, Skeeter, how much work have you done in terms of going into what was done in your past and really facing some of that and the ugly fears and the ugly pain? What sort of work have you done in that regard, Skeeter? I'm curious.
I've done a lot of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm involved in 12-step groups. I found that, and I know you've discussed it too on your show, that, meeting as a group with other people is very powerful. And it did help me, and it still does today help me to hear someone share something that's similar. Every single time I go, it seems like I hear something I need to hear, and I feel a little bit less alone every time I leave.
And so I'm curious, and I'm going to pose this question to each of you. Skeeter, I'm with you at the moment, so I'm going to ask you to answer it first. I want to ask you, if you were to dig deep, Skeeter, you have the mom who, when you ask her to acknowledge her abuse, she demands that you move on and just love me, and boundaries, you don't get boundaries, and you ask her to, you try to explain your need to heal, and she lashes out. And you had a younger sister who was a golden child. She knows how to treat people differently, but she chose to hurt you all these years, okay? I want you to dig deep, and I want you to tell me what the single biggest truth is that you've never said to your mother, maybe out of sheer terror, maybe because you'd be disowned, maybe because she would try to wring your neck. Whatever it is, what is the single biggest truth? Maybe that would be the single most terrifying thing to ever say to her. What is it? And I'm not saying you ever have to say it to her. I just want to know what it is.
You were a terrible mother.
And is it reasonable to us? Well, let me ask you, does your mom believe she was a good mom?
She does.
I have to ask, which tans your hide more? That she was a terrible mother, or that she actually thinks she was a good one?
That she thinks she's a good one.
Yeah. You fucking hypocrite, right? Mom, wow. And then as I asked Libby, and I'm coming over to you in a second here, Libby, what is the one thing that would feel the very best for the words of the apology that you've been waiting for your whole life? What would be the sentence that would be like balm to your soul?
I acknowledge what kind of terrible parent I was. Even giving me examples of times, just that acknowledgement of past wrongdoings. Yeah, just acknowledgement of wrongdoings, and even some examples of things that kind of, I guess, would affirm that she's understanding some of those wrongdoings. And just, an apology. I'm sorry. And then not just the apology, because that's just horse shit if you don't change your behavior,
Amen.
Right? I need to see that you're making a conscious effort to try to connect with me, and, try to not just help yourself, but help me through some of those things too, and be supportive.
Right. And the shitty part is recognizing that there's only a 5% chance that happening. Then the question becomes, is it possible to heal myself knowing I'm never going to get that from the person who caused the wound in the first place? That's the question. That to truly be able to let go of wanting it from mom means to sort of identify that the key to my cell, this cell that she has locked me in, so to speak, inside my own brain, that the key's been in my pocket the whole time. But we believe the only person that can heal it is the person who caused the wound. And in the end, that's never going to happen. And the truth is, you don't need that. It's identifying what I want, identifying what the pains are and the fears are, and flushing all that shit out. Libby, over to you then. And here's the question, Libby. What is the single biggest truth that you have never spoken to your mother first? And I'm going to ask you your father, because you brought both of them into the story. We were mostly dealing with mother when it comes to Skeeter. But with you, Libby, what is the single biggest truth you've never spoken to your mother that you might even be terrified to speak to your mother?
I just want to know why.
Okay.
That may sound strange,
No.
but I just...
And if you knew why, then
I would
what?
ask my mother why.
And then what? If she explained why.
Why would you do that?
And then what? Then what would you want if she explained why? Then what?
It would be nice to hear her say, I didn't realize, it had that impact on you. I'm sorry. I love you.
And then we could have a relationship and you could get your love needs met. Right. Okay. But let me ask you this. I want to know, recognizing that she hasn't done that, and it's a low likelihood that she's going to do that. So I want to know, what is the single biggest truth you most want to say to her? Not ask her, but say to her, knowing everything that she did to protect herself and to allow all of this damage to be done to her 3 daughters while her brother is being protected by the father. What is the one thing you most want to say to her? For all the anger that's in you, what do you most want to say to her?
I would like to say she's irrelevant.
Then say it as
Horrible.
if you're
horrible.
okay.
You're horrible. You're just a horrible person. You're absolutely horrible.
Exactly.
Disgusting.
You're a horrible person. And what would be the biggest thing you would most want to say to your father?
At this point, I confronted him 3 times and I did the best I could. And
Understood.
I would say,
and so what do you most want to say to him today?
no, you didn't. You're a piece of shit. You're a horrible person.
There you go. To both of you, when I was talking with each of you expressed sadness and each of you expressed anger. So you both have very big emotional charges inside of you that have not healed yet because they're still there. And you have to understand that all those fears, the loneliness, the sadness, the rage, the hatred, the anger, the disappointment, the betrayal, all of that you have to keep flushing out, because as long as it's still in you, it's not out of you. And that means that all those emotions are disrupting your decision making. It's disrupting your ability to think clearly. It's disrupting your parenting. It's undermining you because your own insecurities are causing you to act and be agitated and who knows what. And that is going to affect your decision making and your parenting and so forth. You and I both know. I was with a client today. And I told this kid, young guy in his 20s, we were talking about decision making and being high charged with emotion. And I said, I want you to go and listen to a song that is perhaps the consummate song for being charged with emotion and making a profoundly bad decision that you regret for a very long time. And he says, yeah, okay, Sven, what's the song? I said, I want you to go and listen to Paradise by the Dashboard Light by Meatloaf. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that song, but the protagonist in the song is all charged up because he's in the backseat of the car with his girlfriend, and she says, will you love me forever? Let me sleep on it, he says. She says, will you love me forever? He says, oh, let me sleep on it. She says, will you love me forever? And he says, I couldn't take it any longer. Lord, I was crazy when the feeling came upon me like a tidal wave. Right. When we're so hypercharged with emotion, be it sexual, be it anger, be it sadness, be it loneliness, be it fear, we make the fucking worst decisions. Skeeter, you're recovering from some bad decisions for 6 years when you were addicted and you weren't there for your kids. And God bless you for recovering it. God bless you for owning it, because you are doing what neither of your mothers or fathers did. All right? Libby, God bless you. You're here. You're trying to sort through all this stuff, but those darn fears, you guys got to go in. You got to face this shit, you guys. You got to get serious, because all those powerful feelings are affecting your decision making. So there's no disputing you have longing for your mother. There's no disputing you desire to connect, as every child does. But that just fades and fades and fades over time when we really see them for who they are and the fact that they have no interest in being a member of the human race, and really owning themselves. Rob, any thoughts over there?
Sven, your great gift is explaining that you don't have to confront the people that hurt you in order to heal.
That's right.
And that's a great message for Skeeter and Libby, I think.
Well, let me ask you then, Rob, as you see it, I mean, you've done 250 of these episodes with us, and if I don't need to confront the parent as you see it, what do you think you need to do in order to heal yourself?
You need to confront yourself. You need to confront your inner feelings about it. You need to go deep into them and experience them and understand how you really feel and how you really should have felt and bring that to the present day. And then I think you can begin to see your way out of it.
Well, and we've lost Libby. We've lost our connection with Libby. So we're going to stay with you here, Skeeter, for a few minutes. One of the things that I would encourage you to do, Skeeter, a few things actually, is, and you pick this up in the book, but I would encourage you to begin with writing a letter to your mother that you don't send and that you don't give it to her, and that at the very least, you give yourself permission to tell her all the things you've never told her. You are a terrible fucking mother. That you have been so fucking cruel, and the fact that and I'm just riffing here, but the fact that you call yourself a good mother is just disgusting to me. It's just like you're a wingnut. This is just nonsense. You are a horrible mother, and then the feelings on top of it. But then also, to Rob's point, I would encourage you, and perhaps the father as well. You don't really mention your father, but perhaps the father as well. But I would recommend to you that you go back to 9-year-old, and I'm randomly choosing a date, 9-year-old Skeeter, and you write her a letter. As you're closing your eyes and imagining going to her and holding her face in your hands, her sweet, beautiful face in your hands, and stroking her hair behind her ears, and looking in that innocent face and saying, "You dear sweet girl, I'm here. No one's ever going to hurt you again. You are the most precious being on earth. I got you, kiddo." And then holding her in your arms and letting the heaving sobs flow out of her, the retching of a lifetime of pain already by age 9, exploding onto your shoulder as you rock her back and forth. And you tell her those precious words. You are such a wonderful girl. You are such a beautiful, beautiful child. I'm getting you out of here. No one is ever going to hurt you again. I am so sorry that you have gone through this. As a lifetime of pain already in that 9-year-old comes wailing out of her, you need to go to that 9-year-old girl. You need to tell her, or whatever age you choose, you need to tell her all those words that you needed to hear. You need to see yourself holding her and protecting her against the snakes around her. And you need to get her out of there. And you need to write her a letter of all those words. All those words. As I say that to you, Skeeter, what are you feeling?
Sadness.
A lifetime of grieving, packed into a 9-year-old, packed into you now, decades later. A lifetime of grieving, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And you weren't protected. And it's time now. 9-year-old you needs you to go into the vault in which are packed all the feelings, 1,000 million chits, receipts of all the feelings you felt in response to everything that was done to you and all the things that were never done for you. And you have to have the courage. You set that little girl free. You heal that little girl free by honoring what her responses were. Her feelings were very normal, natural responses to the things that were done to her. Any one of us would have the exact same response, even now today. if those things were done. But she couldn't have her feelings. They weren't allowed. So she had to stuff them down, and you have to go down into that vault and set her free. And that's the gift you give her, is you set her free finally. And the gift she gives you, the gift that 9-year-old gives you, is she introduces you to the person you've never known. She introduces you to your real self, that self you weren't allowed to feel. All those feelings, that's your authentic self. Those are your real responses. They've been in there the whole time. You're afraid of them, but that's your actual authentic self. That's who you really are. Those were your real feelings. If I hit my thumb with a hammer, I'm going to scream bloody murder. And I'm going to be crying at the same time, and I'm going to be frustrated because it's the 4th time this month. Those are my real feelings. But I have clients whose fathers wouldn't allow them to cry if they hit the nail, the thumbnail with the hammer. So all those feelings are packed down inside of them, but that's their authentic response. You have a lifetime of pain in that vault. Your authentic self is in there. You want to meet yourself? You want to find your true strength? It's in the vault. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings on that?
It feels overwhelming.
It is.
It's scary. It's scary.
It is.
What am I going to dig up?
And what you're going to dig up is all your feelings. But everything in there is your best friend. It's the stuff that was done to you that was ugly. It's your responses. That's your real self. You finding your voice. The screams, stop doing this to me. The sadness, the crying, just be nice to me. Just be nice to me. It's your authentic self. Everything in there is your friend because it's you. Nothing in there is there to hurt you. It's your response to all the stuff that was done to you. But yeah, it's scary. But your salvation in this lifetime is in that vault. That is what sets you free. Casey, any other thoughts? Or Rob?
Yeah, don't let the bastards win.
That's right. Casey?
I mean, I think that you're going to be okay because you've named the beast and you're facing your fears. And I feel like you're just at the crux of letting a lot of this pain out and seeing these people for who they were and who they are. And I think you're going to be fine.
And it's going to require the guts to do it.
I think you're doing it already.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. And yeah. And the question really becomes, has your pain gotten bad enough? Has the pain of living this way, it's been bad, no doubt about it, but has it gotten so bad yet that it, in a way, weird way, it gives you the courage to finally go inside of that vault and finally say, you know what, fuck it. I am so sick of living this way that anything that's in that vault, I'm just ready. It's fine. I'm so ready. I'm done living this way. You know what? I'm going to do it. You know, and it's only when the pain of living this way has gotten bad enough. And that's a question only you can answer. And there's no right or wrong answer. And there's no shame if you don't yet. It may not be time yet. May not be time yet. So what I'd like to ask you, if you would, Skeeter, is if you'd stick around and just come back for just a couple of minutes for an overtime after the show. Would you do that?
Sure.
All right. I want to thank you for being on the show, Skeeter. You're a terrific guest. And for those of you listening in around the world, thank you for tuning in. Apologize for the, we lost Libby there at the end. It had been telling us she had low bandwidth and we were getting slow responses. So we lost her. And I apologize to everyone about that. However, we will be right back with an overtime. Please stick around for that. Any final thoughts, Rob or KC?
No, I think you covered it.
Lovely. Well, to everyone tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of the Badass Counseling Show. On behalf of my kick-ass team here, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.